Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive is all about getting intentional with how we work and maybe even challenging some of those uh, deeply ingrained assumptions about what it means to be successful.
Like the idea that bigger is always better.
Right, exactly. Like you have to grow, 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 or you're failing.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We're diving into Paul Jarvis's Company of One.
Which, by the way, is a fantastic read. So have you read Company of One yet?
I have, yeah. It's actually what got me thinking differently about my own business.
Awesome. So for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, can you give us the quick rundown on what this Company of One concept is all about?
It's basically the idea that you can build a successful and sustainable business by staying small and intentionally choosing not to scale.
So not just like a freelancer or solopreneur.
Right. It's more about having systems in place so you're not trading time for money and really focusing on quality over quantity.
Interesting. So what was your initial reaction to this idea? Did anything surprise you about Jarvis's approach?
Honestly, I was surprised by how much it resonated with me. I think I always had this idea that I had to grow my business to be successful, hire employees, open an office, all that.
The whole corporate ladder dream.
Yeah, exactly. But Jarvis really challenges that assumption. He makes a strong case for staying small, being more intentional with your work, and actually enjoying your life.
Okay, so I'm curious, was there anything specific in the book that really stood out to you?
Well, one of the most surprising things for me was how Jarvis reframes the idea of staying small. It's not about being a failure or lacking ambition. It's a deliberate strategy to prioritize quality sustainability and a life you actually enjoy.
It's like choosing a different path to success.
Exactly. And he even talks about how even massive companies like Google and Facebook are embracing some of these company of one principles.
Really? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so Jarvis gives examples like Google encouraging employees to pursue personal projects and Facebook having these hackathons where small teams rapidly develop ideas. It's all about recognizing the power of individual initiative and autonomy.
It's almost like they're creating little companies of one within their massive structures.
Exactly. So even if you're not running your own business, these principles can still be applied to create more autonomy and impact within a larger organization.
Okay, so that's fascinating. I'm already seeing how this company of one concept could be relevant to a lot of different people. Now, Jarvis highlights 4 key traits of a successful company of one: resilience, autonomy, speed, and simplicity. Let's start with the resilience. Why is that so important when you're going it alone in the business world?
Well, think about it. When you're running a small business, you're inevitably going to face challenges and setbacks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But the difference is you don't have the safety net of a big corporation. You're kind of out there on your own.
So you have to be able to roll with the punches.
Exactly. You need to be able to adapt and bounce back quickly.
I'm thinking of that story Jarvis tells about Danielle Laporte, who was actually fired from her own company.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
But she didn't let that defeat her. She actually turned it into an opportunity.
Right. She totally embodies those 3 core traits of resilience that Jarvis outlines: accepting reality, finding humor, and adapting quickly.
I love that. Accepting reality, finding humor, and adapting quickly. Can you give me an example of how you've seen these traits play out in your own work?
Well, I've definitely had my share of setbacks over the years.
I think we all have.
And I've learned that dwelling on them or, blaming others, it just doesn't help. You have to just accept the reality of the situation, find a way to laugh about it, and figure out how to move forward.
It's easier said than done sometimes, though,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. But the key is to keep moving. Sometimes that means adjusting your plans or even completely pivoting. But you can't get stuck in the negative.
I think that humor piece is so important. It
Yeah.
can really shift your perspective.
It can. And you know what? I think resilience isn't just for entrepreneurs. These are valuable traits for anyone navigating the uncertainties of the modern world.
That's such a good point. Okay, so we've talked about resilience. Let's move on to the next trait: autonomy and control. I think this is what draws a lot of people to the company of one model in the first place.
Oh, definitely. There's this growing desire for more control over our work and our lives. People want the freedom to set their own schedules, choose their projects, and work in a way that aligns with their values.
It's like taking ownership of your career.
Exactly.
Jarvis tells this great story about Caitlin Maud, who left her agency job to become a freelancer. And she was very deliberate about building her skills and network before making that leap.
Yeah. Caitlin's story is a great example of how to be strategic about creating the kind of autonomy you want. She didn't just jump ship on a whim. She took her time to build a work life that gave her more control and flexibility.
So it's not just about working from home in your pajamas. It's about having the freedom to structure your work in a way that truly fits your life.
That's it. And this ties into the larger trend of freelancing and the changing nature of work. We're seeing especially younger generations challenging the traditional 9 to 5 model. They're looking for more flexibility, purpose, and control over their careers.
So how much autonomy do you think you crave in your work? And what steps can you take to achieve it? Maybe that's something to think about as we move on to the next trait, speed.
Okay, speed. Why is that such a huge advantage for a company of one?
Well, when you're small and nimble, you can make decisions and implement changes so much faster. You don't have to go through layers of bureaucracy like you would in a big company.
Right, you can just be like, okay, let's do this.
Exactly. It's all about agility.
Mhm.
You can respond to customer needs, adapt to market shifts, and basically just stay ahead of the curve.
Jarvis talks about Stuart Butterfield, the guy who created Flickr and Slack, and how those were both pivots from failed projects.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic example. Both of those were super successful companies, but they wouldn't exist if he hadn't been able to quickly adapt and seize new opportunities. So instead of getting bogged down by those failures, he was able to see them as opportunities to try something new.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of speed. It allows you to experiment, take risks, and iterate without being paralyzed by the fear of making a wrong move.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about resilience and autonomy and speed. Now let's dive into simplicity. Why is that so important for a company of one? It almost seems counterintuitive in today's business world where everything is so complex.
It's about resisting the urge to overcomplicate things and focusing on what truly matters. Stripping things back to the essentials.
So it's about being intentional with your energy and resources.
Right. Jarvis has this great example in the book where he contrasts Delicious and Pinboard. They were both bookmarking websites, but Delicious grew so rapidly and became incredibly complex, and ultimately they sold for next to nothing.
I remember that.
But Pinboard, on the other hand, stayed simple and profitable, and they ended up acquiring Delicious.
Wow. So it really is a case of less is more.
It can be. Sometimes simplifying your approach is the key to success.
Okay, so switching gears a bit, one of the things I found most interesting about Company of One was how Jarvis challenges this whole obsession with growth as the ultimate measure of success.
Oh, yeah, he really pushes back against that bigger is always better mentality.
He argues that bigger isn't always better, and that sometimes staying small can actually be more fulfilling and sustainable.
Yeah.
Did that resonate with you?
It totally did. I think a lot of us have bought into this idea that we need to be constantly growing and expanding our businesses, but Jarvis makes a really compelling case for why that's not always the best approach.
He talks about Sean D'Souza, who runs this successful company called Psychotactics. But get this, he intentionally caps his profits at $500,000 a year.
Yeah, I remember that part. It blew my mind.
Why would anyone do that, right?
Because for him, success isn't just about money. It's about creating a business that aligns with his values and allows him to live a fulfilling life. He's chosen to prioritize quality and lifestyle over endless growth.
That's so inspiring. It's like he's saying, I have enough, and now I can focus on what really matters.
Exactly. And Jarvis cites a study that found something like 74% of high-growth tech startups failed because they scaled up too quickly. So this whole growth at all costs mentality can actually backfire.
Yeah, it's like this insatiable beast that can end up consuming you.
He literally calls it the beast. It's this relentless pursuit of more that can end up sucking the joy out of your work and your life.
It makes me think of those cautionary tales about companies like Starbucks and Krispy Kreme that overexpanded and ended up diluting their brands and hurting their bottom line.
Right. Sometimes scaling back can be the key to regaining your strength and rediscovering your purpose.
So if growth isn't always the answer, what should companies of one be focusing on?
Purpose and values. It's about having a clear sense of why you exist and what you stand for.
So it's not just about making money, it's about making a difference.
Exactly. Jarvis highlights Miranda Hickson, who's a workspace designer. She's really intentional about keeping her company small so she can maintain a balanced lifestyle. She's proof that you can be successful and stay true to your values.
And there are so many examples of larger companies like Patagonia and Seventh Generation that have built their entire brands around a strong sense of purpose. They're attracting a new generation of customers who care about more than just the bottom line.
It's smart business, too. Jarvis even mentions research showing that companies that take a shared value approach, where they're creating value for both the business and society, are actually more profitable.
So it's a win-win. You're doing good in the world, and you're also building a stronger brand and attracting loyal customers.
Now, I know we've all heard the advice, follow your passion, but Jarvis actually challenges that idea. What are your thoughts on that?
I actually really appreciate his take on it because I think that advice can be kind of misleading.
Yeah.
It sets people up for disappointment because it ignores the importance of skill development and mastery.
Yeah, it's like saying, just figure out what you love and everything else will fall into place. But it's not that simple.
Jarvis points to Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank, who says she didn't discover her passion until she started working hard and seeing results.
Right. And Cal Newport makes a similar argument. He says passion often follows mastery. We develop a love for something when we become good at it, when we see results, when we feel a sense of accomplishment.
It's not about waiting for passion to magically strike. It's about taking action, developing skills, and creating something of value.
And Jarvis is really honest about his own experiences. He admits that some of his ventures, the ones he was most passionate about in the beginning, actually flopped. It was only when he focused on developing valuable skills and meeting a market need that he found true success and ultimately passion for his work.
That's so encouraging to hear because I think a lot of people get stuck waiting for that perfect idea or that magical spark of passion. But sometimes you just have to start working and see where it leads.
Totally. Now, another important aspect of the company of one model is building trust and scaling relationships. Jarvis goes into some really interesting research by Glenn Urban, who's an expert on trust in business.
Trust is so important these days, especially with social media and online reviews. A single negative experience can go viral and ruin a company's reputation.
Oh, absolutely. And companies of one have this unique advantage because they can actually cultivate more personal relationships with their customers. They're not just a faceless corporation, they're real people who are invested in their customer success.
He gives examples like MailChimp and UgMonk that have built incredible customer loyalty by going above and beyond to provide exceptional service and build genuine relationships.
It's about treating your customers like human beings, not just transactions.
Okay, so let's talk about launching and iterating. Jarvis is a big advocate for starting small and testing the waters before going all in on a big idea.
Yeah, he uses the example of Jeff Sheldon, and the launch of UgMonk Sheldon started with just a few t-shirt designs and a simple website. He didn't overthink it or wait for everything to be perfect. He just put his work out there and started building his audience.
And that allowed him to learn and adapt and refine his products based on real-world feedback.
Exactly. He didn't waste time or money on a big launch that might have flopped. He started small and iterated his way to success.
I love that approach. So the key takeaway here is don't let perfectionism hold you back.
Right. Get your idea out there, gather feedback, and iterate based on what you learn.
Okay, now, even though companies of one are intentionally staying small, they still need systems and infrastructure to function effectively.
Oh, definitely. It's easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day tasks of running a business, but there are ways to streamline your operations.
So what does Jarvis recommend?
He's all about leveraging existing technologies and services. There are so many amazing tools available today that can help you automate tasks, manage your finances, and connect with customers. It's all about working smarter, not harder.
So it frees up your time and energy to focus on the things that really matter.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the final takeaways from Company of One. Staying small doesn't mean staying stagnant.
It's not about becoming complacent or resisting change, right?
Not at all. Companies of one are constantly learning and adapting and evolving. They're not afraid to experiment and try new things and refine their approach as they go.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between stability and growth.
Yeah, you get to define what success looks like for you. You're creating a business that fits your life, not the other way around.
That's such an important reminder. As we wrap up this deep dive into Company of One, what's the one thing that really stuck with you?
I think for me, it was the whole idea of redefining success. It's so easy to get caught up in that hustle culture and the pressure to constantly be striving for more. But Jarvis makes such a compelling case for slowing down, prioritizing quality and sustainability, and actually enjoying your life.
Building a business that serves you instead of the other way around.
Exactly.
And I think these principles can be applied to more than just business, right?
Oh, absolutely. Whether you're working within a larger company or just trying to figure out your next career move, these ideas can help you create more autonomy, purpose, and meaning in your work.
So if you could design your ideal work life, incorporating these principles of a company of one, what would that look like for you?
That's a good question. I think for me, it would be about having the freedom to choose my projects, set my own schedule, and work from wherever I want. But it would also be about knowing that my work is making a positive impact on the world.
Finding work that's both fulfilling and sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
And Company of One really gives us a framework for doing that. It reminds us that we have more control over our work life than we often realize.
It's about challenging the status quo and designing a work life that truly reflects our values.
If you're feeling stuck or you're just yearning for more meaning and control in your work, I highly recommend checking out Company of One. It might just change how you think about your entire career. It's a call to action to create a work life that's both meaningful and sustainable.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Company of One. We'll see you next time.